Now to Ukraine. Nearly 4 months since Ukrainian troops moved into Russia's Kursk region, commanders say they are losing ground. Ukraine holds less than 2/3 of the territory it captured, while Russia is making more gains, though at a heavy cost. Our correspondent Rebecca Ritters reports now from close to the front line, where Ukrainian soldiers hope more heavy weapons will make a difference.
Close to the Russian border, we're making our way to a Ukrainian tank repair position. They're in a cluster of trees in a bid to hide from Russian reconnaissance drones.
This tank has just returned inside Ukrainian territory. A little over an hour ago, it was inside Russia battling on the front lines.
It's a British Challenger tank. They and other Western-supplied weapons have been crucial in Ukraine's fight, and the men here need them to continue.
There are different opinions on whether to give us support or not, to continue supporting Ukraine or to stop. Everyone here is worried about it.
If that support dries up, Alexander is in no doubt his life will get even harder.
It'll be very difficult, but we will fight with what we have.
These soldiers from the 82nd Separate Air Assault Brigade spearheaded the operation, pushing into Russia's Kursk region this summer. In an attempt to take back the lost territory, Russia has mounted a counter-offensive, backed by an estimated 50,000 troops. That includes soldiers from its ally North Korea, though it's not entirely clear if the North Koreans have taken part in fighting yet.
No, officially we haven't seen them. Even if they are there, just imagine they are there. Does it change anything?
One thing it does seem to have changed is Western countries' policy on Ukraine using longer-range weapons they've supplied inside Russian territory. In November, after months of waiting, Ukraine got the go-ahead to start firing US ATACMS into the Kursk region. It's not clear how dramatically this will change things, but these soldiers seem optimistic the missiles will help in the long run.
I think it will take some time until we see the results of the long-range weapons usage. These weapons are aimed at destroying enemy logistics and weapon supplies. When they will have an insufficient supply of ammunition, food, water, and the rest, then we will see the results.
He thinks those hoped-for results will be important for Ukraine's position in any negotiations to end the war.
In my opinion, the Kursk operation is an ace card, as well as a huge motivation, not only for our men, but for the whole armed forces. Yes, the scale of the operation might not be that big, but this is enough.
Whether the Ukrainians can hold on to enough of Russia's Kursk territory long enough for it to function as an ace card is the question that no one here can answer.
Let's bring in Marina Miron from the War Studies Department at King's College London. She joins us from Munich. Welcome back, Marina. It's been 3 weeks since President Biden and other Western leaders allowed Ukraine to use longer-range weapons against targets inside Russia. Are they making any difference?
Good evening. Well, for now, what I can say is that, of course, on a tactical level and perhaps on an operational level, they will complicate Russia's logistics. But the problem here is they are not going to have an impact on the strategic level. In other words, they will not bring this war to an end. They will not stop the Russians from waging war or from moving forward in the Donbass. So we have to understand that, because Ukraine has a limited amount of long-range weapons, and the Russians knew well in advance that the Ukrainians might get that permission to use them. If we recall summer 22, when the Russians found out that the Ukrainian HIMARS can reach their command and control centers and their logistical nodes, and it had a short-term impact, and then the Russians disperse their logistics, and so the effect was gone. And here we have a similar situation, essentially. So unfortunately for Ukraine, it doesn't have enough long-range systems, deep strike systems. And the other point is that Ukrainian forces would have to follow up with a ground maneuver.
Right.
And we have seen during the counteroffensive that it's very difficult and the Ukrainian army cannot do that.
Right. And we heard from Volodymyr Zelensky today saying that 10 to 12 more Patriot missile systems would allow his country to fully protect its airspace and make war for Putin meaningless. So 2 questions from that, I suppose. 1, is that true? And 2, do you think Zelensky is likely to get those extra Patriots?
Well, to the first question, firstly, it depends when these systems are delivered. And more importantly, who is going to finance it, to finance the missiles, because the Russians will try to overwhelm the Patriot systems as they have done in the past. And it's a very expensive undertaking, so it's not just the price of one system and plus the interceptor missiles, but it would have to be constantly restocked. Then you need manpower, 90 people to operate such a system. Does Ukraine have the manpower to operate these systems with a manpower shortage? And of course, you need specific training for Patriot systems. So in theory, it would be better for Ukraine. It would be more protected.
Right.
It would make it more difficult for the Russians to wage their air attacks. But in practice, I don't think that Ukraine will get 14 Patriots. And given the problems and the timelines, I don't see it as a realistic scenario.
And part of that timeline is the inauguration of a new American president. And it does look very much as though both sides in this war are sort of stuck in a holding pattern, trying to hold on to what they've got until they see which way Donald Trump jumps next year.
Well, absolutely. So it's difficult to predict what exactly is going to happen. We have now a black swan situation with the fall of the Assad regime in Syria. And so we don't know what is going to happen, but we know that the main enemy for Trump is China. And if we look at the administration, those whom he has chosen, they will be more focused on China. And of course, we don't know what exactly his peace plan looks like. That being said, and taking aside what is happening, of course, Trump could dry up the aid to Ukraine, which would be fatal. But the problem is also manpower in Ukraine. And Ukraine is slowly running out of manpower. And this war of attrition is costing a lot. So either way, the war will be reduced in intensity if it doesn't come to some sort of an ending or ceasefire, which might not happen because the Russians are also quite distrustful of such agreements. And they've seen in Syria that it can collapse.
Okay, thank you for that analysis, Marina. Marina Miron, a military expert from the War Studies Department at King's College. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.